Welcome to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast, presented by FantasyGolfBag.com, your number one source for the most in-depth PGA Tour analysis in the daily fantasy and sports betting world. Each week, our experts will discuss everything you need to know, from the course preview and key stats to top plays, fades, and strategies. Whether golf betting, grinding out cash games, or playing for a big GPP win, our team has you covered. Let's get after it.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast. After a nice little short break, I am co-hosting with Axis tonight, going over the Greenbrier tournament. Last 2 weeks, Euro. This week we were back with NFL started last week, and now we get some PGA Tour kind of fall swing. Played up in, I think it's Virginia, the Old White TPC. So excited to kind of jump back in. We got a lot of stuff in store, like this fall swing, getting ready for January, like the real season. So hopefully you guys enjoy these podcasts throughout the rest of the fall swing. Got a couple of news announcements I'll get into, but let me go ahead and bring in Axis, and we'll get this thing on the road. So Axis, how's it going, man?
It's going well. Busy time of year, college football, NFL. PGA's back, Euro's still going, so a lot to keep you entertained on the weekend, all day, AM to PM. It's great.
It's so tough if you're like for us managing all this stuff with the data side. It's very time consuming. But if you're a casual DFS player and you pick up golf during the year, that's fun. You have a couple of days to prep for it. Starts Thursday, it's all good. And then you're preparing for NFL, and then NFL rolls around, and now, okay, you added one more thing to the list. Maybe you get into NBA. Now you have something every single day. Maybe you like hockey or baseball, all these extra little things. So my point is, Euro the last couple weeks has been great, but now all of a sudden I have to balance Euro, playing PGA. MLB I still like playing occasionally, and now NFL's on top of that. It's and then they even have college football DFS. So there's 5 sports going right now. Yeah,
the bankroll can be stretched thin if you're not careful. I mean, all it takes is bad weekends happen. Is all I'm saying. It doesn't as long as they happen less often than the good ones, you're fine. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot going on. Got to watch it.
Yeah, fun stuff. All right, yeah. So a couple real quick news announcements, because I think again, big thanks to Skylar at Axis the last couple weeks taking care of the Euro stuff. Shout out to Ryan Baroff, also of Golflandia, who helped out, I think it was last week, for the podcast. Always appreciate his insight, so definitely a shout out there. And so a real quick kind of summary. If you're already a premium member, you've already heard this whole spiel, but I'm going to go ahead and repeat it for those, because we do this free anyway. So the live streams this fall are going to be kind of postponed until January. So a lot of people really enjoyed those Wednesday night Twitch live streams. A ton of fun kind of talking through weather and ownership and some last minute questions on players and pivots, stuff like that. But we have a lot of stuff kind of building up going into January, so we're not going to be able to do that on Wednesday night. Plus, people are playing NFL, a lot of other stuff going on too. So just a heads up, we don't plan to do any live streams. If any do pop up, you just check us on Twitter at Fantasy Golf Bag. We'll update you there. But yeah, you can anticipate all of our stats. The stat model, everything will be updated every single week, just like normal. Content-wise, should be just like normal, nothing different there. And then podcasts, the same. Live stream probably be cut throughout the fall. So just want to kind of point that out if people are anticipating that Wednesday night. We won't be doing it, but if you are a member, you can chat with us in Slack all week long. A lot of guys do that even during the Twitch stream. They're hopping back and forth. So wanted to throw that out there. Anything else I'm missing? Axis. I think Euro is kind of ramping up, so definitely keep an eye on the Euro rolling stats that we offer. But yeah, I mean, it should be pretty much the same deal, just minus a couple, live stream being one.
Yeah, and I'm going to start churning out the course fit and course preview articles once again as well. So we've been all over the place trying to update the site, getting all the Euro going and everything. So kind of hadn't been putting those out, but definitely going to be tossing that content out as well. So we'll still have a lot of stuff going. And like you said, the Slack chat's one of the best features anyway. You can find all 4 of us in there throughout the day. So,
yeah. All right, man. Let's dive into the old Greenbrier. Do you have any course data for me? I know you're writing up a course preview article. If you want to hit that, or I can talk on it. I think you're probably more.
So White Sulphur, West Virginia? Yeah, White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. And how can I can't talk about the Greenbrier without talking a little falconry too. So all the golfers and their families get some lovely falconry going, and we're going to have to hear about that quite a bit during the broadcast, I'd imagine. Could be a little different this year with this time of year. I'm not really sure, but going off of past historical data here, the Old White TPC, so I'm going to be focusing a little more weight on off the tee this week. Obviously, like, there's exceptions to everything. You don't have to necessarily be awesome off the tee here. However, dating back to 2013, a lot of the best overall tournaments, I think I looked at like the top 35 scores here ever in field differential. And a lot of the guys were getting it done, gaining strokes off the tee more than at your typical course. All the actual numbers I will have in the course preview for the premium subscribers. Like, I'll have all the actual statistics, so you can take a look at that as far as that goes. And then the typical bucket range for approach, a broad range is 100 to 150 yards seems to be the key range at this particular course. So it also seemed to comp a little bit to Country Club of Jackson and TPC Summerlin. So I go a little more in depth in the article on that as well. So it's kind of where I'm at with the course. And like I said, every week we talk about it, ball striking. This week, though, going to put a little more emphasis and a little more weight on the off the tee side.
All right. Yeah, so looking back at some prior winners, obviously Kevin Na last year, Xander in 2017. They had the terrible flooding back in 2016, so didn't host the tournament. 2015, Danny Lee. 2014, Angel Carrera. So a good mix of guys in there. Most of the winning scores are right around 15 to, we'll say, 19 under par, because that's what Kevin Na finished at last year. So a decent scoring course. I mean, it's a par 70, 7,200 yards. You'd think the scoring wouldn't be as good on a par 70 like that, but the guys get it done. So like you said, off the tee is a pretty good, statistic to eyeball this week. It does seem like guys are a little more aggressive off the tee to get those birdie opportunities. So keep an eye on that. Other than that, I mean, would you say it's pretty much a standard week in terms of your key stats? I mean, obviously weighing approach, birdie or better generally we look at, and then taking a peek at our extended approach numbers on the website. Oh yeah,
it's nothing drastically different. Like, instead of so if you do your ball striking, if you weight it yourself, maybe on an average week you're 35, 65 off the tee to approach, and maybe this week it's closer to 50-50 for me, something like that. Just because even Kevin Na, he gained 0.35 a round last year. When Cabrera won, it was 1.42 a round off the tee. 2017, Xander was 1.22 off the tee a round. So, I just think this course does lead to guys who are great off the tee to having a little bit of a bump compared to the guys who don't, I guess.
Yeah. Yep, so. And then I guess the last thing, if people want to look at putting splits, it is bent grass. I don't know if you mentioned that already, but
nope.
Not going to weigh that too much. I think you get a pretty good mix of guys this week. So if you're trying to compare apples to apples, like in an overall model, I think just be careful there overall, because you got a lot of guys coming from the Korn Ferry Tour, which we also are providing stats for, I believe, right? Didn't Skylar already post those?
We have. So on the site you'll find the guys from the finals, and we have we weighted. Obviously, we don't have access to the stroke gain stats there, but we put up the weighted green and regulation, weighted driving distance,
birdie or better,
driving accuracy. So you can look at birdies, birdie rate, things of that nature. We have the strokes gain differential for all of them as well. So
okay, cool. Yeah, so I would definitely try to take a closer look especially this week. I mean, how many people, from what I've heard, all the sharp people are probably transitioning their focus to NFL, and if they are putting in golf lineups, it's not going to be as dedicated as it normally is. But if you are going down the list, take an extra look at the Korn Ferry guys. Like, don't just, pull up a model, run it, and say, oh yeah, these guys are leading an approach, I'm going to knock out all these guys. Because there'll be guys like Scotty Scheffler, and Hovland will rate way up there. He's coming off the Korn Ferry Tour the last couple weeks. But a lot of these Korn Ferry Tour graduates are going to be, extremely good form coming in here. So just keep an eye on that, because their stats won't reflect that depending on where you're looking.
Yep. We'll touch on a few of them as we go.
Oh, I'm playing a lot of them this week, man.
So
excited.
I don't know if I'll be on a lot, but there'll be enough sprinkled in there. There's a lot of them to choose from.
I just feel like this is a good golf course if they're coming off of those 3 weeks in a row in the Korn Ferry Tour finals. Ride them while they're hot.
A lot of guys, a lot of people will recognize some of these names too. They've been back and forth. So Grayson Murray making another appearance. So.
Birdie or better rate. Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into it then, man. Let's hit this top range as always. We'll focus on DraftKings pricing for the podcast, starting in the high end, working our way down to the 6K values. So I'll lead off with you, man. In the 10K and up, you got Bryson, Victor, Hovland, Kokrak, Leishman, who's been burning me left and right all summer, and then Bubba Watson up there at 10K. So any of those that kind of stick out to you? Is it even worth paying up for like a Bryson or Victor Hovland in this field?
I won't be playing Kokrak, although I will say I don't necessarily think he's mispriced. It's just really painful to me to have to pay $10.5K for Jason Kokrak when I can pay $400 more for Victor Hovland. So
yeah,
I don't mind Bryson either. I mean, he's only $200 more, but Hovland's my favorite. Everything seems to line up for him. I'm sure he'll be pretty popular. People have loved to play him, but off the tee game, elite irons have been outstanding. Makes birdies, avoids the big number for the most part, crushes green in regulation. If you want to look at what he was doing in the Korn Ferry Tour for his brief little stint there near the end of the year, just seems like everything lines up. I guess Bubba would probably be the other one up here just because I'm leaning off the tee this week. But yeah, other than those two, I mean, it's pretty much Hovland or bust up here for me this week.
Yeah, I'm probably just going to key in on Hovland. I mean, Bryson's been okay, but I mean, he hasn't been doing, like, through the summer, it's been really kind of hit or miss, mostly misses. And then, was it the Tour Championship? He finished 7th, I think. So, like, the form's been kind of sketchy coming back to a course he played 2 years ago and finished 14th. So, at 11K, I'd almost just kind of ride the hype train on Hovland at 10.9. I mean, it's not a huge savings either, but still, I think Hovland's been playing better. He seems more kind of gunning to win now that he's got his PGA Tour card. So, yeah, I'd probably lean that way with Hovland. Leishman, Watson, probably nothing for me. Kokrak coming in. I mean, Kokrak, if we want to talk about 2019 form, has been one of the most consistent ball strikers all year. I know you had a hatred for him when he was in the 8Ks, and now you see him at 10.5. I can't even imagine what your brain's doing. But
yeah, I just thought he was overpriced earlier this year. It's not, trying to make it too personal, but I mean, I just wasn't paying for it. I paid for it a couple weeks.
I think he was overpriced based on his historical performances, and then every single week he would show up and pay off 8K, 8,500, 9K
he
almost.
Slowly crept his way up my model all year. He's one of the few that he didn't regress nearly as much as I had anticipated he would. It happens, but yeah. Leishman has been negative tee to green his last 3 events, so that's a big no for me as well.
Yeah, people might get misled off the finishes, but yeah, not trending the right direction. So Hovland or bust, I guess we'll go with. And let's move down into the 9K range. So again, not a huge group of guys in this tier. Makes it a little bit easier, but some unfamiliar faces for a 9K price tag. You got Sung J M at 9,800, probably reasonable. Joaquin Niemann, 9,700, pretty reasonable. Scott Piercy, Ben On, Russell Henley, Kevin Na, 9,200. And then to round it out, you got Keegan Bradley, Cameron Smith down there at 91 and 9,000 even. So in this tier, I mean, I'm looking pretty heavily at Joaquin Niemann. That'd be probably my first guy that I would look to. Overall, his form this year, ball striking wise, is probably similar to what it's been like all of last year when everyone was playing him. Coming to this event, he had a chance to win it. 98th percentile in tee to green over the last 6 months. 9,700 there. That's probably my guy. You have any strong takes in that top range?
Nope. I feel bad. I just railroaded Kokrak at 10.5, and now I have to come to this range, and I have a Piercy at 9.6. Sung J M apparently just has amazing stamina and is going to continue to play. He's got 118 rounds logged for us from the start of 2019. It's insane. So I don't know. I'm not going to play Henley at 9.4. Honestly, the weird one, and again, I feel like an idiot after I just bashed Kokrak. But I mean, if I'm playing someone from this range, I don't mind playing him at all. He's been solid off the tee for a majority of the season. The irons have been so-so, but maybe the off the tee game can give him an extra edge here. I like Neiman as well, and then I missed Scheffler.
Scheffler at 9,300.
Yeah, Scheffler at 93. I was working my way down there. I'm not going to play I can play Scheffler at 9,300. I wish Cam Smith was better off the tee, but for 9K, I think I'll be avoiding that. So I think it's either Keegan, Scheffler, or Im. Probably my top 3 of the 9K range.
Okay.
I mean, no strong feeling in this range, though, which is probably good because if I'm playing Hovland or even if I'm playing Bryson, I'm probably skipping this range.
Yeah. And I don't think you're saving enough. Like, say off a Hovland down to a Scott Piercy, like $1,000, you're not really saving that much to save, like, to round out a roster down into like the low 7s or something like that. So it would probably be a dead zone. I mean, I'm sure I'll have a sprinkle of some of these guys. Like I said, Neiman I do like quite a bit. Scheffler, one of the Korn Ferry Tour guys, I do like. But yeah, there's not a ton of, like, it's just not a lot of upside
Piercy is
for them.
weird. Piercy's the weird one because for as short as he hits it, he's actually been pretty solid off the tee compared to the rest of this field. I know we don't have, if we had strokes gain stats for a lot of the Korn Ferry Tour guys, that could be different and bump him down because I'm sure a lot of those guys can probably outdrive him and drive it a little better, but he hasn't been awful off the tee. The irons are always, you're going to get pretty solid irons from him. Strokes gain field differential for this field is pretty solid. Again, we only have so much for some of these guys, but that's about for 140 of these guys. I have strokes gain field differential dating back to the start of this year. So I don't know. It's a weird one. I don't know if I can play a 9,600, but GPPs. That one just kind of stuck out to me as I was looking really quick here.
Yeah.
Would not have guessed Piercy would have actually kind of fit better than I thought.
I mean, he grades out really well ball striking wise. I think he's not so close to a Kokrak level, but he's one of those. I mean, he's very streaky, but for the majority of this year, every time he's teed it up, for the most part, he's gained strokes tee to green. So it's not one to shy away from, but like I said, you're not saving that much off of like a Hovland.
Nope.
So,
if I make single entry, this is probably not. I'm probably not pulling anybody from this zone.
Yeah. All right, let's roll down into the 8K range here. Little mix of guys. Like, I can't imagine where you're going if you're even going in this tier, because I feel like there's a decent drop off from the 9K to the 8K, and the 9K is not that impressive. In the 8K range here, like Harold Varner coming off of a decent finish a couple weeks ago. Shout out to Orange Man, one of the Fantasy Golf Bag members, reached out to him on Twitter and was able to get some tickets, and then the good karma, I guess, led his way, and he ended up finishing third at the Northern Trust, had a chance to win. So not sure if I can go back there, man. 8,700 for him seems a bit rich. You got Kevin Streelman there, back-to-back missed cuts, a guy that I generally like to play in these type of fields, but that's a bit tough. You got Robert Streb with some serious course history. I think he's got, 3 top 5s? Yeah,
I don't have it in front of me, but he's been
second place, 11th place.
The only reason he's 8,500, and that's a hard pass for me.
Yeah. You got Russell Knox there, and then rounding down, you got a couple no names. So I'll kick it off with you, man. The 8K tier, I'm looking at, a Russell Knox just from a ball striking aspect. Martin Laird, I guess, if you want to talk about off the tee, generally he's a guy that leads in that category in these type of fields. Anyone that really stands out to you? I don't have any strong feelings in the 8K range. This is probably one of the weakest ranges for me.
Yeah, nothing really stands out. You did mention, though, Streelman at 8,600, and it does suck that the last two events have not been pretty for him. Last time we saw him, Northern Trust was the last event he played that he was eligible for. So, but leaning on his season, maybe the time off has done him well, hopefully. But he's really the only one who stuck out with pretty solid off the tee and approach numbers for this particular field. So, like you, everything here is kind of blah. Like I don't know, you could play Laird. I mean, I guess if you wanted to, that wouldn't be awful. But yeah, nothing really stands out. I think Struman was the only guy marked to look further into. And as far as the ball striking goes, he checks off those boxes. Obviously, he can't putt, so hopefully that would show up. But yeah, realistically, Struman was the only one I highlighted on my first glance over in the 8K range. I think saving salary and be playing a lot of guys in the 7K range.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to go somewhere in this range, it'd probably be to like a Russell Knox. I mean, overall for the year, irons wise, he's so consistent. I mean, driver, he's not going to really knock it out of play. So like in a cash situation, that would probably be a guy that I would lean to in this range. Outside of that, a lot of them are just GPP plays. Like you said, Kevin Streelman would be my guy to go to, but 2 missed cuts is definitely scary. I did have a question for you though. Like in this type of field or this type of course with a decent amount of course history to go off of, although we have a lot of like fresh faces playing this week, are you using that at all? Like it does seem like a guy, Robert Streb, has had good finishes here year after year. Russell Henley has, 5th place, 10th place coming in with, mixed form. I'm not putting a lot of weight into course history. It just doesn't seem like there's 2 ways to think about it, I guess. There's a lot of people that would probably lean that way there's only so many people with course history and a couple of them have good course history. Maybe that boosts their ownership. But I just don't see especially after a good break, like you don't have a ton of stats to go off of. Everyone's kind of got mixed tournaments they've played in recently. I'm not putting a lot of weight into course history, even though this course kind of makes you want to think that way, I guess.
It's not something I weigh very heavily on a week-to-week basis to begin with. That doesn't mean I don't peek at it. It's kind of hard to not peek at it, but I normally look at it more to see if, all right, certain guys that played well here, do they have something in common? It's more of a course fit thing is why I look at it, because, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get into a giant course history debate. I don't think it's necessarily irrelevant. It's hard for me to quantify, so I don't really use it as part of a model or anything. I mean, Fitzpatrick on the Euro side, for example, could have won 3 times in a row 2 weeks ago in Switzerland and then played like shit. So that's one example, but you can pull them both ways. So again, just to get back to the course history thing, I look at it, I use it more of anything to maybe find what type of guy plays well here, more than I do specific golfers.
I gotcha.
But it never hurts to have seen the course a bunch. I'll put it that way, though. I'd rather see that a guy's played here a bunch than necessarily I'll weigh that a little bit. Like, oh, he's got 18 rounds here. It's not a new course. And at least if he's played well enough throughout those rounds, that's nice to see. But I don't really put too much stock in the actual finishes.
I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like I said, makes you want to kind of look that way, but just not a lot with the different types of players that are coming in this week. Probably the last one I'll mention in that range is probably Joel Damon. I mean, he's been very mediocre stats-wise, coming off of okay finishes. He would probably be another one that would throw in the GPP bucket. But again, pretty thin in the 8K for me. Let's hop down into the 7K range where we got a Tom Lewis, which is probably the first one as a good example of someone with probably poor PGA Tour stats, depending on where you're looking, but coming off a win on the Korn Ferry Tour a couple weeks ago. So one of those guys to kind of keep an eye on if you're looking that direction. You got Danny Lee, Bronson Burgoon at the top range. Danny Lee winning it 4 years ago, I think, and another think 4 years ago he won it, 9th place 2 years ago, miscut last year, so a bit of a mixed bag. In this range, probably, man, I'll be going down to like a Sepp Straka again, like 7,600. He was being priced around 7K in stronger fields, kind of in the FedEx Cup playoffs. Going to this course, 7,600 for him. I don't see too much risk from a ball striking standpoint. Like, again, he's one of the lower level guys as far as putts gained. I see him in, he's like the 30th percentile for me in this field. Off the tee is pretty strong. Like you said, that's a pretty good correlation. Green regulation is way up there. At the top range, man, that's probably my favorite play to go to. Maybe Tom Lewis. I probably am going to kick that around a little bit.
Yeah, so we pulled Tom's Euro stats, obviously, since we have a lot more of those. And obviously the fields are a lot weaker, so you can figure out how you want to weight that yourself. But he's not bad off the tee, and the irons are good, so you could definitely go back to Tom Lewis, and he just beat a bunch of these guys who are coming over here. So, I don't think this field's not going to be like incredibly harder than the best Korn Ferry guys. So I think that's very viable to go back to Tom at 7,900. Another Korn Ferry guy who just played in the finals, Kramer Hickok, caught my attention with his off the tee game. Sepp Straka, as you mentioned, just been a ball striking wizard. If any short game shows up, then he's got a chance. And the one that bothered me was in my overall model, Bud Cauley was much higher up than his price, but then you look at his stats and his off the tee game has been pretty trash all year. So I don't really know what to do there because he's been relying heavily on the iron play and his scrambling, which is not something I like to lean on. But
yeah,
I've had some luck with the guys who I think have been underpriced with my overall model, so I don't know. Bud Cauley would be a GPP play for me, but this upper 7 range, I can get behind Lewis, Hickok, and Sepp Straka. And really quick on, if I find Hickok here from the Korn Ferry, we grabbed the last 10 tee stats for him. So last 12 rounds, he's 97th percentile in weighted green and regulation, 88th percentile in driving distance, and 96th in driving accuracy. So you can infer that his off the tee strokes gained would be great considering his distance and accuracy. And obviously the weighted green and regulation is paying off from the good drive. So Kramer Hickok is one of those guys coming over that definitely can find his way into a lineup this week.
All right, I'll put him down. Again, he's kind of like one of those that year-long stats on the PGA Tour are going to be a little bit hit or miss. So taking a peek at the Korn Ferry just to get a glimpse of what their really close recent form's like, probably going to be pretty beneficial this week. Going down a little bit, like Andrew Landry's last event was really terrible, 7,400 for him. But in this type of field, on this course, man, he seems like one that kind of stands out as a mispriced. Like his last couple finishes are okay, but if you do look at his last event, he gained like 6 strokes putting, so kind of be cautious there. But then look at the people around him and where he's fared this year, and even last year in some of these events. He's not going to kill it off the tee, but from a consistency standpoint, he would be the one. I mean, look in that tier. You got Anderbarn Lahiri, Nick Watney's been a little bit hit or miss, Jimmy Walker, Duffner Jones, Haas, Harmer. Any thoughts on Landry there? Trying to find someone in that kind of mid-tier, I guess, that would probably be a go-to.
Yeah, Landry was another one with Cauley who, in the overall model, especially he popped in recent form. And I know you said the last event, it wasn't pretty as far as off the tee or approach. He did it all with the putter, but
yeah,
he did it with the putter this last couple 3 of it. Even John Deere, but he played better with the irons at least than John Deere too. But that's a very easy course. No, but because of his recent form, he did pop. I did have that weighted this time of year, maybe a little more than usual. I don't know. It's been really hit or miss this year. He hasn't really popped too much except for that John Deere Wyndham T20s. Other than that, it's pretty much been miscut or 50th place. So I guess I don't know if I'm getting any real upside with Landry, but again, in this range, I mean, nobody else really jumped off the page either, except Tringali at 7,300. I did bet him as well.
I know you liked him.
So it's kind of odd. I forget. I want to give someone credit. I think it was Will Haskett, his pod. I think he was talking about Tringali, and he had mentioned like he's 10 to 15 yards longer. He made one of the biggest jumps in distance off the tee this season, I think, and it's actually been really paying off. He's been playing pretty well, and at 7,300 on, a course like this where I'm weighting distance a little more, and the irons have been really good for him, I think it's definitely worth a shot to me at $7,300 and the 80-1 wager I got on him as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a guy that we've been probably going back to every single week when he's been down at 6,800 to 7,400, 7,300. So actually, I think the last couple times out he was priced closer to 78. But yeah, his last event kind of scares me. So I don't know if that's going to be like he kind of hit his stride in the middle of the year, and now he's got to take a little bit of a regression. So I mean, I'll probably mix him into my player pool. You seem like you're a little bit higher on him than I am, but I mean, long term, it looks great.
I mean, yeah, even his 10T off the tee is actually better than his season long, and I haven't gone back to check like exactly when some of the distance gains really started to show in his game. Like, I don't know if this was something he was working on at the end of last year, or if he found it mid-season, because he was pretty trash for most of 2018 off the tee. Like, just, you can go look. It's insane how bad he was losing like 4, 5, 6 strokes in multiple events off the tee. Like, just that, so bad. And then you can start to see, around the Honda this year, he started gaining strokes off the tee suddenly, and he's not killing it off the tee, but 4 of his last 5 events he's played are all positive off the tee. 4 of the last 5 are also positive with approach. Yeah, the Northern Trust was a disaster with the irons, but that's quite an outlier compared to what he's been doing all season. So in this field, I'm not going to get too bent out of shape over 4 poor rounds. He's had some time to shake it off. So at 7,300, I think, yeah, he'll be somebody I probably have exposure more than most this week. I'll have exposure to Tringali.
Okay.
But, I mean, dipping down here, starts getting kind of ugly.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. I mean, I had a couple of questions on Korn Ferry Tour, guys. I don't know if you have those stats right in front of you. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but
I do.
Zach Blair, we're going to get down to the 7K range, or 6K range, sorry. Harry Higgs at 7,200. Lanto Griffin coming off of the good finish last week. Like, a couple of those guys would be someone I would look to, because a lot of the PGA Tour guys around him, and maybe I'm just hyping up, seeing recent form over, the PGA Tour veterans, for lack of a better term. Like, Sam Ryder's last event was terrible. Adam Schenk, Fabian Gomez, man, kind of getting drawn into the Harry Higgs, Zach Blair for sure, 6,900. That seems like a pretty easy plug and play, at least for me.
Yeah, so before I dive into the Korn Ferry guys, which I will, because I do start to like some of them down here, and I will take the risk on some of them. I wanted to mention Chappell, that he's finally going to be back in a PGA event at 7K. Obviously, I don't really know what you're going to get from him, but it was nice to see him back. Missed the entire season with the back injury, so I'm hoping he can find it. I'm a Chappell fan, so listen to a few interviews he's done. Seems like a real laid-back, cool dude, so I like to root for him. So just kind of be interesting. I'm not going to risk it, although if you're playing enough GPP lineups, it could be worth a risk, because he's definitely a better quality golfer than a majority of this field. It's just how much rust. I mean, that's a lot of time off. But Doc Redman, 7K. Doc Redman is someone who I will have a lot of exposure to as well, mainly from the off-the-tee perspective. He's got a decent strokes gain field differential for down at this price too. So riding off the tee big time with Doc Redman at 7K.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on him as well, but
I mean, from the birdie or better standpoint, he's got to be
that too. Yes.
Yeah, he's got to be one of the best. I mean, he didn't stand out to me so much, mainly off of, again, like his last couple events. So, I mean, I don't see a reason not to play him. I mean, I brought up before we even started the show, like the Detroit Golf Club doesn't seem like a very correlated golf course from, you know, how Nate Lashley kind of tore it up, but it does seem like there's going to be a lot of birdies to be made here. Guys hitting driver, playing aggressively, and that's definitely his game. So,
you know who else did good at the Rocket Mortgage Classic? Cameron Tringali.
There you go. I mean, it kind of lends.
I just happen to be staring at it. Yeah, I have zero idea if there's any correlation, like you said, but similar field.
It is going to be a similar field. Just from the aspect of the driver, you know, aggressive with the driver, a lot of birdies, most likely from the way the scorings have been in the past. That lends itself to kind of focus on some of these Korn Ferry guys, which is what they do. Which is why guys that have come from college this year, like a Hovland, a Wolf, like they've torn up those low-scoring events. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of the Korn Ferry guys kind of gets himself into contention, if not several, because that's basically what this course should be like. It's a perfect kind of blend. That's how it's been every year with, you know, like the Safeway Open with Kevin Tway winning. All these fall events are going to be a lot like those Detroit low-scoring type of courses.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and if we jump back into some of those Korn Ferry guys, I'm just going to rattle off a few that kind of stuck out. Again, you can find all the stats on the site, but the ones that really stuck out were Grayson Murray at 6,800. Due to his green and regulations and like a weighted driving distance. He wasn't very accurate though, but Cameron Davis was very accurate and long off the tee. And that led him to crushing a lot of greens. He finished 21st in the finals. Murray was number 11 for all things considered. Kramer Hickok, who I mentioned earlier, was 4th. So those are guys that kind of stuck out to me. I guess another one...
Neesmith, right?
I mean...
How did Neesmith do in those last two, statistically? Matthew Neesmith...
Well, he's number 1 in the finals. He crushed the greens, and he was very accurate off the tee. But he's not short either. Like these Korn Ferry guys crush the ball. Neesmith, I have him at 312 off the tee over 10 rounds. So, and that put him at 52nd percentile of these Korn Ferry Tour only guys. So, the young crowd coming is murdering the ball. So, like I said, these guys, if we had strokes gained off the tee, would bump down like the Piercies that I talked about earlier that seem to be higher in this field, but it's because we don't have off the tee stats for about 50 of these guys, so who all drive the ball over 300 yards. So I guess you got to keep that in mind as well. But if you're looking for accurate guys who were crushing the greens recently, the guys I just rattled off are probably the top choices for me from the Korn Ferry Tour guys.
Yeah, that's basically most of my time. Probably be a focus of my article this week is going to be a lot of these value guys and the Korn Ferry. I mean, I know we talked about it earlier this weekend or when we were kind of prepping for this week, and the Korn Ferry guys should be a focus this week. I mean, I'm trying not to harp on it too much, but that's the opportunity, especially if people are just kind of looking at finishes or blindly looking at guys that finished high on the money list for the Korn Ferry Tour. Like, there's a lot more underlying factors to kind of hit on going into this week. I think that's probably where most of my focus is going to go.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, try to find an edge where you got it. I can't imagine too many of them will be heavily owned aside from Hovland coming over from that side. So.
Yeah, the only other one that I'll mention, so like I went down to the bottom. If I go down in the stat model, like the first one that pops out, like if you go to the very bottom, one was Suture, the other was a Boo Weekly. He's like top 90th percentile off the tee and approach. Putting he's second percentile. He's like his last two events have been just terrible. I probably won't go there. It's not a terrible dart. I mean, he's min priced. or almost min price, I should say. No, he's 6K.
No,
so,
he's dead min, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, not a terrible dart, but I do like talking about the Doc Redman and that Detroit thing again. Wes Roach is another one, 6,500. He gained strokes in each of his last 4 events. We haven't seen him in a while. I think, did he play one of the Korn Ferry Tour finale events?
You're talking about Roach?
Roach, yeah.
I'm not.
Honestly,
I'm
think
not
he did.
100% sure.
That's okay. So
I don't have stats for him from it. So
yeah, the PGA Tour wise, at the Rocket Mortgage, like we were talking about, gained 5 strokes on approach. John Deere, he finished 10th, almost 5 strokes on approach, and 2.5 strokes on approach at the Wyndham. So a guy that's like in the mid 6K range with some pretty good ball striking numbers, kind of a la Sepp Straka, that would be a guy I would go to. Like, I don't hate the Doc Redman call, but if you go down a little bit, if you're, most people just don't hit that mid 6K range.
DJ Trahan as well. I mean,
yeah. So there's a couple down there. Like I looked at Sloan, he's a little bit sketch, but I mean he's got a little bit more of a pedigree than these guys too. So it's an interesting, like I said, you could hit on Hovland up top. You don't need to save the salary, but man, this low 6K range is interesting. Mid 6K.
Yeah, there's some darts. You can yeah. Some of these guys are gonna make a nice run this weekend. So
I like it.
Some of them kind of have to. I mean, half the field's gonna make the cut. So
that's true. All right, man. Any final thoughts? I mean, European Tour is still here, so keep an eye on that. Skylar
the KLM Open
out.
stuff will be coming up.
Yeah.
That's kind of a crap field too over there, so everybody's waiting for next week over there. So hopefully DraftKings boosts the prizes for that as well. They're kind of back to crap, but
yeah,
PGA's back, NFL's back. It's unfortunate, but
they're cutting all the contests. Like even MLB was a little bit short. So we'll see. But all right, man. Well, again, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to the Fantasy Golf Bag podcast. Appreciate Axis hopping on, walking us through some of these stats, including the Korn Ferry Tour stats. Again, you can find all those online at fantasygolfbag.com. And then if you do join, I know some of you have joined over the last 2 weeks doing European Tour. Make sure you join the Slack chat. That's where we can answer all your questions. A lot of the other members kind of interact, talk about strategy. They can basically mass research the field and they can kick ideas across to each other. So pretty cool environment. But as always, guys, keep an eye out for my article. It'll be out probably tomorrow afternoon. And then Axis has his course preview article. So we'll be back next week. As always, good luck in your contests, and we'll hope to see you at the top of the leaderboards. See ya.